Welcome back to McFly subscribers. Today I will continue the small streamer series by teaching you how to tie two different styles of woolly buggers. Now I will discuss these flies and their applications further in the video, but in case you haven't seen this channel before, this is McFly Angler.
Starts now.
Okay, let's start tying. Place the hook securely in your vise. For a hook, I'm using these Risen Streamer 200s in size 12. And these are the perfect streamer hook for this fly, as they are fairly long and have a down eye. And you can see here that they're a 4x long shank. I will also be adding some weight with some .015 size lead wire, or you can use lead-free wire as well. And I like to put the spool in a bobbin holder to make the application easier. I am adding 10 wraps of lead today, but add less or more depending on your needs. And then push the wraps together and position it slightly forward on the halfway point on the hook. My hook slipped, so I'm going to reposition and tighten the vise. It happens. Okay, we also need some thread, and today I'm using Viva's 6/0 in brown. Start your thread ahead of the lead wraps. Then use the tag end to jump over the wraps and form a small thread dam behind the lead. Then snip or snap off the waist. Wrap up over the lead wraps once again and then back down and bring your thread down to the start of the hook bend. Marabou is used for the tail of these, and Marabou comes in many different types. And I also really like using these smaller Marabou, and different brands call it different things. This brand calls it mini Marabou, Whiting calls it chickaboo, and I will tie a version of this fly with smaller Marabou like this one later in the video. For now though, let's grab a standard Marabou feather and grasp the fibers down by the stem, then stroke them up to align all the fibers together. I like to measure out about a hook shank length tail, and you can go slightly longer or shorter if you wish, and then transfer that measurement to your other hand, and tie down at the back of the hook shank with 2 to 3 tight wraps. Then check the length, and if you're happy with the length, continue tying the Marabou up the hook shank until you reach just shy of the lead. When you reach the lead, pull the feather up and snip off the waist. Clean up that section with some wraps, and then bring your thread back down to about the 2/3 mark on the hook shank. Crystal flash is commonly used on the tail to add some sparkle. Pull out 2 strands from the hank and snip them free. Then I like to wet the tips to keep them together. Measure out the flash to just shy of the tail length, then tie this end on the side of the hook shank down to the start of the tail. Then pull the tag end around to the other side and tie that in as well, so there are 2 strands of flash on either side of the tail. And then clip off the flash the same length as the other side. By the way, you can wet the ends of the flash to keep them together, so you don't have to align the tips on the next fly. Now we need some chenille, and I have this beautiful variegated chenille that I'm going to use today, and here's another color of it. But chenille comes in many different colors and types, and here are a few colors of micro chenille you could use if you want a thinner body. You could also do solid colors like this olive chenille. Most any type of chenille could work. So pull off 2 turns of this chenille and clip it free from the card. Then pull off some of the material from the tip of the chenille to expose the core, which will make tying in easier. Okay, tie this in with some tight wraps right in front of the tail. Then bring your thread up to just shy of the hook eye. Now proceed to make touching wraps up the hook shank with the chenille to cover the entire hook shank, creating a fuzzy body. Now there are multiple ways of tying these, and this version here I'm showing you is the absolute easiest and quickest way to tie. In another version I will show later in the video, I will use a wire method. Okay, once you reach your thread with the chenille, then capture the chenille with 2 wraps over it, and a couple in front. Then cut the chenille off tight to the hook and clean up the tag end with a couple wraps. Now we need some hackle, and this is a rooster cape, which will make a stiff bugger. Rooster capes have a wide range of feather sizes. These towards the top of the cape are finer, better for smaller dry flies, but we're looking for one like this, more in the middle of the cape. Always test the fiber length against your fly, and this is about perfect. We need to prepare the feather for tie-in. See how the feather doesn't bend much down by the base? We want to strip off all the fibers from the stiff portion of the feather here. Then we can cut off the excess stem, leaving a small tag end. Also, it helps to strip off a couple more fibers on the far side like so. There is an underside and a top side to feathers. So with the top side up, you want a few more fibers stripped off on the side furthest from you. Okay, I like to tie these feathers in with an X wrap right behind the hook eye. This positions the feather perfectly to start wrapping. After the X-wrap, then bend the stem back and tie over the stem as well. Clip any excess stem off, and then bring your thread down to just in front of the tail with open spiral wraps. Now start wrapping the feather onto the hook. I like making one wrap in front, just behind the hook eye, then start making open spiral wraps down the hook shank until I reach the tail. Capture this with your thread and start winding up the hook shank with your thread. And it helps to wiggle your thread with each wrap, which will help keep from trapping as many of the feather fibers. Bring your thread all the way up to the hook eye, and then pull back the fibers up by the head and wrap in front of them. This will keep them from pushing forward too much over the hook eye. Now you can whip finish your fly and trim off the waist. And it's a good time to trim off the excess feather stem as well. To cement the head, I really like the Solarez Ultra Thin Resin. It has a handy paintbrush in the cap for easy application. Just simply paint a little around the whip finish, then cure it with your UV light and the fly will be super durable. Okay, well there we go, the finished woolly bugger. This is the standard bugger, where it uses stiff rooster cape feathers. These are great for fishing fast moving water as the fibers will not break down and flatten. Also, I tied it in the quick and easy way, where you use thread to hold down the hackle. It works just fine. However, let me show you another way to tie this, with this soft hackle bugger version. These are great for fishing slow-moving streams and lakes, as the soft hackle moves with even the slightest twitches. Now we're going to use the same hook and add lead and thread the same way. Where this fly starts to differ is the tail, and I will be using this whiting chickaboo, which is marabou taken from a chicken and not a turkey. Let's pull off 2 of these with similar looking ends to them. Then I like putting them back to back so they splay out slightly like so. Make sure the tips are aligned as well. Stroke down the fibers in the same way, and then like the previous fly, I make the tail a hook shank length. We will add flash the same way, and then I like to wet the tail as chickaboo is more bushy. Wetting it will keep those fibers out of the way. Okay, now let's get some wire, and the small sized gold ultra wire will work great. Just a couple turns off the spool will tie 2 to 3 of these flies. Okay, tie down this wire with some tight wraps back to the start of the tail. Then we need some more chenille with the core exposed. Let's tie that in and bring our thread up to the hook eye. Wrap the chenille onto the hook the same way as the previous fly, and then capture it and trim it off the waist. Now we need some soft hackle, and I really like this whiting wet fly hackle for this, which is a hen saddle. So the feathers up by the top are usually too small for this application, and the ones at the bottom are way too big. What we're looking for this size fly is a feather in this part of this particular saddle. Of course, check it against the hook, and you actually want the fiber slightly longer than the stiff version. Now these feathers have a large webby feather section at the base of the feather, so we want to strip those off, but leave a little more on the side closest to you for the same reason as the last fly. Tie this in with an X-wrap exactly the same way. Now we need some hackle pliers, and I really like this kind with a rubber tip. Grasp the tip of the feather with the pliers, and make sure the thread is in front of the feather. Then proceed to make wraps down the hook shank. Now this is a shorter feather, so you're going to really have to open up those wraps to reach the tail. When you can't wrap anymore, then grasp the wire with your other hand and start wrapping it over the feather. You will want to wiggle this wire as well to keep it from trapping the fibers, and also brushing out the fibers can help as well. Wind this wire through the hackle all the way to the hook eye, and when you reach the eye, then pull back the fibers and make sure that the wire ends up in front of them. Then wrap over the wire once, pull back the fibers and make another wrap over it, and then pull the wire back with all the fiber and wrap back up over the wire a few times. And now you can helicopter the wire off clean. Now I like to make a few wraps over the wire tag end before whip finishing the fly. Then I like to brush out the fly because these webby fibers like to stick together. And last step is to cement the head with this Solarez Ultra Thin Resin, and the fly is now finished. So check out how much movement there is with these soft hackle fibers in the chickaboo tail. This thing flows so well in the water when stripped, it almost looks like it's breathing. Now look at the contrast with the stiff fiber version. These fibers barely move. Now in fast moving water, the stiff fibers are actually beneficial as they're going to push more water, and they won't break down and look super thin. However, when fishing slow-moving water like lakes and pools and rivers, the soft hackle version is my go-to as the added movement really seems to entice the fish. Now, I tied these two different ways. The one with the wire is slightly more durable and adds a bit more shiny element to the abdomen, and you also don't get as much compression of the chenille with the thread wrapping back up over it. However, the wire does add an extra step and extra material to the mix. So if you're looking to fill a box quickly, I would go with the non-wire version of tying, and this would be more of a guide style fly where you just speed through it, not worrying about durability as much as you are speed. However, for those flies where you want to get 5 to 6 fish off one, maybe more, then definitely tie it with the wire, as it's going to be more durable. And I think it looks better. Now, these can be tied in different colors, and you can even add a bead instead of the lead wraps for the weight, as shown with this olive beadhead woolly bugger. And the beadhead is going to give it more of a jigging motion, which might or might not be what you're looking for. And a 3.2mm bead will fit this size 12 hook best, in my opinion. No matter what color, what hackle, or way you tie these, there is no doubt that they are very effective. In fact, these, I believe, are the most popular streamer ever created. There isn't a fly shop in America where you cannot pick up one of these. And there isn't really a body of water where they don't work. Trout to sunfish, bass, even carp and catfish will all eat this fly. And I've even caught a few saltwater fish on the woolly bugger before. The consensus states that it represents a crayfish, which in a rusty brown color like this one, I would tend to agree. However, I think if you tie them in white or black, they can represent other forages like baitfish or leeches. And I believe if you're fishing these in saltwater, it will represent a shrimp quite well. These are inexpensive and quick to tie. You don't need expensive dry fly hackle, just a cheap India cape will work just fine. Marabou is also pretty inexpensive, and chenille as well. They're also so simple and easy to tie, so if you're just getting into tying, this would be one of my top recommendations for you to start tying. But they're also something you can grow into, improving over time. So they're great for both beginners and advanced tiers alike. I will link below to all the materials I used today if you're interested. Okay, well I'm now halfway done with this month's small streamer series, with two very effective, simple, and quick flies to tie. Last week I started off the small streamer series with this rabbit fur leech, and I will link to that video at the end of this video if you're interested. Next week I will continue this series with a fly called the slump buster. Now this fly holds a special place in my heart as it caught me my first brown over 20 inches. These are also relatively easy to tie, and as the name suggests, it works so well that it will bust any slump. Basically, the fish go wild for this fly. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any future videos like this slump buster. Oh, and by the way, I do sell these awesome waterproof silicone boxes on Amazon with free shipping. They're super thin, allowing you to fit them in most shirt pockets, or fit multiple in a chest pack, allowing you to organize your boxes by fly type, like this small streamer box. Yet they're still able to hold small streamers without compressing the materials. The silicone back is self-healing as well. So even if you do miss the pre-made slots to hold your flies and poke the silicone, it won't get all beat up like those foam back boxes. I will link to my Amazon storefront below in the description section of this video if you're interested. Also, don't forget to check out my sponsor Risen Fly. They made the hooks I use today, but they also make some of the best fly rods and reels for the money I have ever used. Best off, they're offering you all a discount. So if you're in the market for a new rod or a bunch of hooks or beads, go to www.risenfly.com and type in McFly at checkout and they'll give you 15% off of your first order with them. Okay, well thanks for watching. If you like this video, please do me a favor and click the like button. Also, please share my videos with all your fishing friends. I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.